Welcome back, everyone, to the start of week number 6, day 3 broadcast as we get ready for our first match, Language Hacker versus Nalguidan. But not before today's in history facts. Today is May 24, 2020, TJ. And on this day in 1883, we saw the opening of the Brooklyn Bridge, spanning from the East River from Brooklyn to Manhattan Island in New York City. Designed by, of course, John Augustus Roebling. So today, TJ, the question is, how will some people bridge the gap between the rest of this season? As some people looking for that important win to lock in the playoffs or to avoid relegation. Language Hacker chose to bring a pretty defensive lineup. Highlander Priest, Highlander Mage, and he does have the Warrior let through as Demon Hunter was banned away. Or rather, he didn't bring Demon Hunter. The Warlock was banned away. Pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it makes sense for Nalguidan's lineup. The Quest Warlock does seem to have very good matchup spreads. I mean, Quest Warlock, I feel like, can beat just about anything, but the noticeable one is Priest for Nalguidan. Language Hacker has a lot of decks that do well against Priest, and he's trying to improve his Priest matchups as much as he can, and Quest Warlock is the worst one. So not surprised to see him take that away. Meanwhile, Language Hacker banning away the Highlander Hunter, which kind of similar to the Quest Warlock, a terrible matchup for Priest, and thus banned away to try and improve maybe one of the toughest decks to find a win with. Though we did see Language Hacker not really struggle to find a win with his Highlander Priest in the last series we saw him play. This one could be a different story, though. And we are going to start off, Dan. We're going to kick things off with the Priest Mirror. We're just going to get it out of the way right now. I think this is the only possible one we have today. So this will be the first and the last Priest Mirror of the week. And this is
Say it ain't so, TJ.
This is an interesting one. It's hard to evaluate just because of how Highlander decks work in general. But the lack of some key like value generation cards and the lack of Galakron invokes seems to lend myself to saying that the Galakron Priest is favored. Also, just having hard removal like Time Rip in the deck can sometimes allow you to smooth out your mid game. The one caveat to that is a lot of times in the Priest Mirror, what you're trying to do is hold on to your premium removal tools, which, you know, Soul Mirror is the big one, but sometimes you get multiple Soul Mirrors or you can get randomly generated Plague of Deaths until you absolutely have to use them. But Nalguidan at a certain point of the game will absolutely have to use them, because the threat of Zephyrus plus Bloodlust, even by leaving small minions on the board, will always be there. So at a certain point in the game, he'll have to start counting damage and maybe use removal inefficiently to be able to play around those types of cards. Another thing to note is these Thought Steals from Nalguidan. The first one, not super impactful, but if he can pick up one of those key Highlander cards later on in the game, which, you know, we most likely will get later on in this game. Priest Mirrors usually go to Fatigue or very close to it. His Highlander cards would be active if he were able to steal them. One's in the hand from Language Hacker already, but him getting a Zephyrus could be a big deal. And he doesn't get it. All right. Own Wraith and High Priest Ahmet. Still some decent mid-game minions. High Priest Ahmet can be huge because you have a lot of these summon effects. High Priest Ahmet plus Soul Mirror, if you can pull it off with like discounts from Fate Weaver, is very interesting because it can clear off your opponent's board while, you know, also developing your own board depending on the size of the minions. But there's not much to really evaluate early on in the game because both these players will have tools to stabilize, and it comes down to resource management and fatigue management as the game progresses.
Fatigue management is going to be one of the big things to focus on, as you know, we have seen a lot of these control mirrors really do come down to who is able to manage their resources appropriately. And so, for a lot of people who love the intricate back and forth, the chess-like matches, where you can get marginal advantages or sometimes even big swings, depending on how your opponent chooses to approach the matchup, that could very not so subtly set them up for success or failure. And it really does kind of depend on several of these factors, like how are they starting off with the early curve? What's like their resource? What's their resource generation, and like how they're able to capitalize off of it? There's a lot of things to consider. In the meantime, focusing on what ends up happening with this matchup in particular is that I do feel like that Highlander Hunter has to be the one that's slightly more proactive. I don't think they get the luxury of playing as removal-centric as a bunch of other decks, or sorry, a bunch of other priest decks get to, because they don't have as many of those defensive cards as you were talking about. But the benefit, of course, is that sometimes they just win if their opponent's not.
I wonder.
Yeah. That's the trade-off.
Totally.
Bone True Brawler is not an enrage effect. It is just a permanent buff whenever it takes damage. So Language Hacker gets to take a nice trade there. One of the interesting things to note about that previous turn is Language Hacker putting a lot of priority onto mana utilization by using the penance instead of the Holy Smite, even though Holy Smite was more efficient because he wastes the healing. The penance was more mana efficient, and so that was a conscious decision by him. The healing doesn't always matter, right? Like sometimes it can in the later stages of the game when you're trying to play around certain combos. But if you're usually playing like super reactively like that and you need the 3 healing for penance, you're behind enough in the game to where things may not work out for you anyway. So I like the choice by Language Hacker, and already kind of showing the consistency for Nalguidan. He is able to hit early Sethic Veilweaver, which is a good card in the matchup, and because he plays 2 of them, you can feel free to throw this onto the board. Also, Sethic Veilweaver. One thing to note is players aggressively playing around Shadow Madness as a big punish. With cards like Mind Flayer and Sethic Veilweaver, you don't want to leave them vulnerable to Shadow Madness, because then your opponent can generate value off of your cards, which is never something that you want to have happen.
Right.
But already kind of seeing the differences in decks where Language Hacker just plays a minion, Nalguidan responds to it. Nalguidan gets to hold on to resources and keep generating resources, whereas Language Hacker just has way more chance to fizzle out in the matchup because he just doesn't have as many of those cards that generate value.
Right.
Like an Acidic Swamp Ooze in the mirror matchup is like a card that, is essentially useless. And also using Kronks to pick up Galakrond. Kronks can be a pretty massive tool later on in the game, but Language Hacker, realizing that his hand's low on value, says, I might just need to get Galakrond out as quick as possible and just start pressing the hero power button to generate value. I think he wants to be the aggressor in this matchup.
Right.
Even though the aggressor in this matchup doesn't mean much because you're not really putting on aggression. But if he's the one controlling the pace of the game, that allows him to utilize his bigger threats like Dragon Queen Alexstrasza proactively instead of trying to bail himself out of situations. So I think this is mostly a form of necessity from Language Hacker. And yep, Galakrond as quick as possible to get that hero power going. Nalguidan could respond with Murozond.
Murozond is interesting. Definitely something to consider as you want to try and capitalize onto those resources as soon as you can. And Language Hacker, of course, the classic GM applause. They're so happy for each other when they play these cards. It's great. I love how supportive they are over each other.
Yeah. And Language Hacker, his plan has been sort of thwarted. He was hoping to get ahead of the resource generation train by getting his Galakrond out as quick as possible. Hoping that Murozond wasn't there, but it was, and so now both players are operating with similar resources. Nalguidan just has bigger hand size, and again, more consistent tools to be able to generate value and remove boards while developing his own. So a lot of times that interaction where players are holding on to Murzon to Murzon their opponent's Galakron, or Murzon like their opponent's Soul Mirror in situations where players are trying to fight back and forth for board. In the Galakron Priest mirror, we see that happen very late in the game where players are holding on to Galakron and Murzon waiting for the other to play it. But we're experiencing an accelerated version of the standard Priest mirrors that we usually see.
Right, and it doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to end anytime soon. It just means that we enter a stage a little bit quicker than we usually do because both players did get access to that quick Galakron hero power.
Yep.
lnguagehackr kind of debating if he wants to just throw out the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza to present that threat. The earlier you do in the matchup, the less likely they have for the ideal removal, but chances are Nalguidan should be able to answer this pretty easily. Sign of Ruin and Twilight Drake, kind of mediocre stuff. Nothing too amazing. And that's just going to mean that overall you have Nalguidan being able to just kind of win the board.
Yep.
If he's able to just kind of stick a single threat, and lnguagehackr just has kind of mediocre minions, to say the least.
Yeah. And another thing to note about lnguagehackr playing Galakron on 7, even though Kronks could get value later on with board clears or being able to like off the board all the different Kronks effects, lnguagehackr doesn't play a single invoke card in his deck. Doesn't play Time Rip, doesn't play Shield of Galakron, doesn't play the Disciple of Galakron. The Galakron is just there for the value generation. The battle cry is, pretty lackluster, just destroying one minion, which oftentimes hits something small in the matchup. So he knew that it was going to come down to value, so played it first, knowing that it was never going to get more powerful than that. And so the faster he gets it out, theoretically, the farther he can get ahead.
Don't keep your thoughts to yourself.
Yeah, things looking good over in Camp Nalguidan. lnguagehackr, I mean, he's finding some of his reasonable threats, right? He just played Dragon Queen.
Yeah.
And he's finding Tiamat.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like there's a reasonable way for him to even overcome this board.
Yeah, and he did not plan on operating from behind at many of the stages in this game. And because he did draw a card with Kronks, even though it was one card, he is behind in fatigue now, which if he doesn't have a significant lead, being behind in fatigue is a pretty big deal, because Nalguidan, if he doesn't just close out the game by staying ahead on board, does have like more tools to fight in the later stages. His deck is not clogged up with just a bunch of random minions like acidic swamp boos.
I mean, it is a reasonable board, and it's not one that's easily answered by cards like Soul Mirror, but Nalguidan does have several things at his disposal here. I guess the first thing that's on a lot of people's mind here is how can I deal with that Amet? You could simply mass the spell and just kind of like keep the board from being able to snowball too much with your opponent piling on huge statted minions with terms of health. Another possibility could be to simply kill the Amet and just slowly pick apart the rest of the board. Fate Weaver number 2 also seems entirely reasonable. Discount 9 cards by 1 mana seems good to me.
Pretty big discount, honestly. Yep. Just gives him so much flexibility turn after turn. The one problem with Mass Dispel is lnguagehackr voluntarily drew cards. Oh,
that's a problem, huh?
Oh yeah, he got. Yep. That was a generated soul mirror as well, I believe.
Jeez. Yeah, this is looking real tough. Surprisingly, we might get a quicker conclusion to this series, or to this game, rather than we expected.
Yeah, just doesn't feel like lnguagehackr can keep up with just resources. Dragon Queen Alexstrasza used. Zephyr's not the best at just raw value generation, unless Nalguidan like overextends with something big. But I just don't think he's going to do that. He doesn't have to.
Yeah, and cards like Light Will not going to help. So,
nope.
Is there any opportunity to pass here and just take it even slower? Doesn't seem like he feels that way. And this is like one of those tough spots where Nalguidan can just kind of play even slower, but just extend us at the board, and there's not much Nalguidan could do. Enter Fire is interesting.
Actually, quite good. lnguagehackr going to struggle to just remove stuff. With Ahmed on the board, a lot of value in just putting something big and putting lnguagehackr to the test. He could go off on he could use Interfire right here to try and push through this convincing infiltrator.
Time is running out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, looks like he wants to go Dragon Ball Sentinel Interfire, but wants to get the additional health, so Temple Forces should come out first.
Yeah. And now he gets the easy trade. Okay, not the end of the world, just to lose that. Still good.
Oh. Issue with Mind Flayer here is that he's got no way to kill it off himself. He could put it just on an empty board, like just play Mind Flayer on like Ahmet, so that Nalguidan can't Shadow Madness into anything.
That makes sense.
But then he's accepting a significant amount of damage to make that happen. And now Nalguidan could just value trade it off the board, and it's gone for good. I don't think that's a particularly good play. Soul Mirror is such a huge resource for lnguagehackr. I don't think he wants to part ways with it, especially since it's not even a full clear on the board.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the tough issues with what's going on here, is that he can't afford to take it slow. He has to kind of spend some of these more premium removal cards in order to deal with things. That's problematic.
He's already Galakron.
He's already Galakron, but he can capitalize on his battle cry if he wants to just remove stuff.
Yeah. He has the ability to just hold on to that until he can fully invoke it, though. And also be able to get the weapon out of it, which is pretty big. And now we see the Sethic Veilweaver train. He can just go off here. As long as he keeps getting cheap targetable spells. There's another one. Like, I don't think he even needs to silence. He could probably just cycle it for another spell.
Yeah, it looks good to me, to be honest.
Time is running out. What if?
So Thought Steal, just more resource generation here. Nalguidan, I mean, just so far ahead, it just doesn't feel like it really matters.
Just look at the difference between the two hands. All right, Madame Lazul.
That helps.
What
Definitely
does
helps.
he want? Soul Mirror? Thought Steal?
You are a prisoner in your own body. Winds of the south, come to my aid.
Yep, Rush Wind Fury here, trade off both minions, leave this Mind Flayer isolated. So Shadow Madness cannot touch it. I like the play.
Those look good to me.
All bound to fate.
Fate Weaver just making cards cheap again. Nalguidan has more cards. He's about to have better board presence. Is there any way that he can even just be pushing for the win? He's already seen some of the better removal cards and proactive cards from Language Hacker. Feels a little bit safer to extend onto the board, but I mean, at the same time, as Priest and these control decks, you're very much minded on like what you can do to squeeze further value out. Language Hacker's like Thought Steal, which was created by Thought Steal.
And he only has one Thought Steal in his deck. So it's just he is just on the verge of a breakdown. It looks like a Language Hacker breakdown, which is a much more muted breakdown than the average Hearthstone player's breakdown,
Right?
but still, he's been just in kind of a perpetual state of upset in this game, like shaking his hand, shaking his head, clapping his hands,
It feels like that, yeah.
throwing his hands in the air, like he does care.
That's the thing about all these Hearthstone players. They actually do care a lot.
What about?
Power into your guts.
All right, finally gets to cycle something.
I
Forbidden
mean,
Words-
that takes his entire turn.
Yeah,
He
that's
could
the
use Madame
problem.
Lazul to try to find something, but that's not that.
Oh, well, Disciple of Galacron.
Okay. And he's ahead on board now, generating a couple of things.
Got a Shadow or Death. Looking good, looking good.
It's reasonable.
All right, what are his outs? What is Language Hacker's win condition?
Maybe.
Skeletal Dragon. That's the win condition.
Is it?
What? What else? Or just like infinite Murazons from his hero power. He's not going to win a straight up honest Hearthstone battle with Nalguidan right now.
I guess that's true.
He needs something crazy.
Thy blood be born again.
Okay.
Time is running out.
I mean, the Envoy of Lazul is just more resources. It just feels like Nalguidan just has too many resources to overcome here.
All right, now we're cooking. Got ourselves a Thought Steal.
Okay, yeah. Thought Steal into Thought Steal plus change.
I think Nalguidan's already used his two natural Thought Steals. He had him in the opening
Okay.
hand.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
All
What
right,
is this?
Madame Lazul
Combo
can take
Priest?
a Galacron fully
Oh,
invoked.
it's a fully invoked. Let's do that.
Seems good to me.
Massive Spell, I don't want to put myself further into fatigue. Scarlet Subjugator? No way.
Well, Galacron can actually give you board leverage now. So you
Yes.
can actually put stuff on so put minions onto the board, and then when your opponent develops anything, in response, you simply just kill them. Kill those minions, and you push the 5 damage with the weapon.
Yeah. The Lightwell here, Probably just a scare Nalguidan. I think I would have liked seeing a hero power, but just because his hand is lacking.
Now, this looks like a good opportunity to wipe the board here with Master Spell and Kronks, but I mean, if Nalguidan doesn't feel like he wants to spend those resources because they are more valuable for even finding a game-ending bush, he could just hold on to it. Also, don't forget, he has his own Galakron, so he actually could just trade, play his own Galakron, and then trade into the remaining minion.
He could get another one! And honestly, that's the only one that makes sense, because that's the only one that he's holding in his hand also.
Right, so he's like, wait, you got this copy right back.
Time is running out.
Oh my god, this is so silly.
Now he has 2 fully invoked Galakrons. He has 20 damage just with claws.
I don't get it.
I am beyond imagination. Succumb to madness.
More minions right back.
Double hero power value as well.
Right, 2 minions.
Another Lightwell!
Language Hacker and his Lightwells, man. Loves it. Loves the Lightwells.
Oh boy.
Maybe.
Ah, that's the good one. Reliquary of Souls allows you to extend fatigue, as long as you don't leave it vulnerable to Shadow Madness. Likely gonna...
How much want to? How much do you think he's just gonna get a Dragon Queen Alexstrasza and then just at this point play Language Hacker's deck without having to put it into his deck naturally?
Probably.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure also it is active. I don't know if it's active. Deck Tracker's a mess.
It is very much a mess. Everything is so squished.
I don't know.
What about?
He might still have a Penance in deck, because he's generated 2 penances, and I think that's all he's played. That's the only...
Okay, that is one of those pennants. Hey, good call, TJ.
No, Nalguidan. I'm talking about like active Zephyrus or active Dragon Queen if he picks it up from Primordial Explorer.
Hey, I'm saying that he just picked up the pennant, so it was
okay.
good call out. You are correct.
None.
Oh, the Black Knight!
Okay, all right.
But is it enough? No, it's not.
Really
Zephyrus
not
from Black
enough.
Knight.
Yeah, Zephyrus from Black Knight is like, this is the kind of stuff that is like okay, but you want to be using Zephyrus in a game closing scenario. This is still looking pretty bad. And Nalguidan could actually just continue to take his time. He can just use his weapon, use a little bit of his armor, squeeze out even more value. Then hero power. After he uses his pendants, he can hero power, play the Primordial Explorer, and then find that inevitable Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, or even just other hard cards to deal with, like Evasive Draconid, Evasive Fellwing. These like dragons that are super annoying to deal with.
He doesn't even have hand space for Cobalt Spellkin.
He can, but he would be mulling a card as you were talking about. Maybe it's just an opportunity to play like Lightwell.
Yeah, just dump it.
Lightwell. I think I do want to get rid of the Zephyrus. I don't think there's any way for Priest to just punish it, but at the same time, having a poisonous minion forces your opponent to swing into it with their weapon.
Pain and suffering await you.
Yep, I'm gonna kill off his own
Ah, okay, I like that too.
Reliquary to get the Reliquary Prime in the deck. Now a few cards ahead in Fatigue. Important. The Harrison Jones, it destroys the Claw, but do you really want to be 4 cards behind in Fatigue? Because this is very likely going to at least the first couple hits of Fatigue before Nalguidan starts to make like that final push. Like you'd negate 5 damage from the Claw, sure, but you could end up taking way more than that by accelerating Fatigue.
Yeah.
But honestly, I mean, his win condition at this point has to be to just find the goods and try and kill him. But without Zephyrus threatening lethal with a wide board, it just seems impossible. Nalguidan has so many tools for removal. Another fully invoked Galakrond. He still has the natural Soul Mirror since the first one he played was generated. He's got Renew to pick up some pieces if he needs to. So he just has everything to react. And being ahead in Fatigue, that's really all you have to do is make sure that you just don't ever fall behind on board.
Is it really that simple, TJ?
I mean,
Just
at this
react.
point, it is. Obviously, you know, being proactive means that it's easier for you to react to what your opponent's doing. But Nalguidan, he doesn't. What I'm saying is, he doesn't have to put on the pressure. He doesn't have to stick a minion at all costs. He just needs to make sure that he's cleaning everything up each turn, keeping his hand size manageable.
True.
And using his resources.
Very true. Okay. Yeah, I can get behind that.
Alright, who's thirsty?
This one, he just has too many cards. You should just Shadow or Death on a 5-1.
Well, I mean, Language Hacker has targets with the Shadow Word Death himself.
Okay.
This timeline amuses
Envoy of Azul. Maybe he can get another Galakrond himself.
I like it.
Pretty unlikely at this point, but just because of how many cards are in Nalguidan's hand. It only chooses 1 from the hand and 2 that are not in the hand. Unlike Madame Lazul, which gives you much more information.
A simple spell.
More ways to just generate resources here.
Yeah.
Mind Vision into Mind Flayer. Yeah, this game is just starting to get silly at this point.
stopped us.
Wing blast.
Okay, well, pretty mediocre Psychopomp result, though he did have a lot of small things.
Yeah, I don't know if it really even matters, though.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like it does. Language Hacker, Skeletal Dragon was the win condition that I called out. Has a very wide range of effect. All the way from Fairy Dragon up to Dragon Queen Alexstrasza.
It isn't as empty as it looks.
At this point with Envoy of Azul, a lot of times you have to choose between getting a card that you actually think or know is in your opponent's hand, or you think is in your opponent's hand, or picking what you want as the best option and just hoping that that's the one that's there.
Yeah, that's also fair.
I don't know if Penance...
It's too hard.
Wait,
There's just
wait
too many
a
things been
second.
generated in this game.
Didn't he pick Penance?
check the stream. Just
Yeah,
thanks
yeah.
to the rewind feature, I can actually go ahead and take a look at that.
Yeah. It looked like he chose
Yeah.
penance.
Seems like it.
There's a penance in Nalguidan's hand.
It's the wrong penance?
It's the wrong penance? That makes no sense.
Then which penance was it? That's kind of OP, man.
Wait, what?
Right, because the options were Disciple of Galakron, Murzon, the Infinite, and Penance. And I thought only Penance was in the hand.
And he chose penance.
Yeah. That doesn't sound right, TJ. Did Language Hacker get Skamaz out of a card? I don't know if it matters. It's definitely interesting food for thought.
What if?
I don't know, Dan.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know what to believe.
Another soul to consume.
Well, Twilight Drake, the last big one.
The last.
All right, how about 2 Mind Flayers? Not great targets on the board, though. Twilight Drake will come out as a 4/1. But it's just a decent card to have later in the game when you're doing, the big removal turns.
Right.
How about a Plague of Death? Just as an emergency.
He doesn't even really need it.
Yeah. Looking back at the clip again, it actually looked like he picked something else.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think he picked, like I said, a lot of times in that situation, it comes down to, all right, which is more likely that he has in his hand? Penance is more likely that he has in his hand because he still has 2 natural copies left. But Murzon could be in the hand, generated from the hero power or one of the invokes. And so basically Language Hacker's reasoning is, if I pick Murzon, even if it's not there, I'd rather have a small chance of getting a Murzon than a guaranteed penance. And sometimes that's how you have to look at it. So I think just the animation of the Envoy of Lazul, it highlighting the option that was the correct option looks like a player choosing it on Spectate. But he actually chose something else. The animation that we saw for Penance was just the animation of the game telling him which one was correct. So glad we solved that one because that was kind of breaking my brain a little bit.
It was. It was breaking.
Ooh.
And it's kind of like what you were saying. Got to be a little bit more optimistic, perhaps, with how you approach things.
Yep. But Language Hacker, 3 cards behind on Fatigue. No significant value or removal in hand. And a clever play here to try and get himself a Skeletal Dragon. But it needs to be a big one. Nope. Base of Feywing. Wah, wah.
What would he require? I guess Ysera Unleashed.
Ysera Unleashed.
But even then, he has Plague of Death.
Dragon Queen Alexstrasza into 2 Ysera Unleashed would be ideal. Or Dragon Queen Alexstrasza into like the Azure Explorer that both hit Ysera. No, you can't do that because it's a Druid card. You can't discover it. Yeah, it would have to be Dragon Queen Alexstrasza into double Ysera Unleashed and just pace him out when you're in fatigue. Hope he has the answer. But Nalguidan's just going to do the same
really
thing.
Suboptimal.
Yeah. And Language Hacker's issues this game have been just trying to stay in the game. Whereas Nalguidan's issues this game have been trying to dump his hand enough so that he can fit all of this value. And Language Hacker's had enough. He realizes, I'm out of win conditions. No more Mind Flayers, no more Skeletal Dragons. I can't keep Purifying every turn and accepting this damage. I'm 3 cards behind on Fatigue. And the one and only Priest Mirror that we had for today is over. And it was much less spectacularly long as the ones that Europe had. But it is a different matchup. It's not a Priest. It's a Priest class mirror. but the archetypes were different, and that's where Nalguidan was able to find his edge just with the consistency of his deck.
Well, I mean, the important thing was that he was able to just get that W in the first place, and now that the Priest mirror is over, it's funny because both players are kind of banning with that Priest in mind, right? Highlander Hunter and that Quest Warlock, both problematic classes for that Priest to end up dealing with. So, now that the Priest has been removed from the equation, how does Nalguidan and Language Hacker series look with the 2 warriors remaining? Unless I remind you that the Warrior Mirror also has potential to go to Fatigue, but at least it's a lot quicker paced in terms of both players drawing through their deck and being able to have the answer appropriately. Looks like Language Hacker is going for his Pain Warrior for game number 2. This one features some pretty straightforward mid-range options. A lot of people have started taking out the Terran Gordon Fiend and the Serpent Egg for a while now. So for people who might be still playing those Death Rattle packages, it's a little bit less prominent. Instead, they just have more consistency what their deck does. 2 Korokron Elites, as an example there, 2 Injured Tolvirs just to get early game board presence and activate that Battle Rage in case you don't have that risky skipper. So I appreciate the leanness of this deck list because it's nice and organized, TJ. There's not like too many, one-ofs that you hope to draw that one game in this one scenario.
Yeah, there's still players bringing all 3 versions. There's players bringing the meaty version with the natural Captain Greenskin and Deathwing Mad Aspect. There's players bringing the Serpent Egg Terran Gorfiend version. And then there's a few players bringing this version with the Injured Tolvir. The Grom has been a pretty consistent choice over most players' lineups just because it gives you that additional range, especially against some of the slower decks where you have time to piece together burst and set up for your even bigger burst with Bloodsworn Mercenary and Korokron Elite. This version has like that crazy potential of ending games quickly with like Coinage or Tolvir into Rampage into Bloodsworn Mercenary. That can end a lot of games if you get that ideal start. Kind of gives you more of that just consistent place in the early game and not having to rely on combo pieces, which the egg sometimes does, and the Captain Greenskin Deathwing Mad Aspect one can be tough to manage hand size because you have more combo pieces and more reactive tools. The Deathwing Mad Aspect is a card that I really liked at first, but I've started to like less and less. Because in a lot of matchups, you ideally like to have control of the board. And if you have control of the board, Deathwing Mad Aspect is a pretty useless card. It's taking up space in your hand just in case you lose the board. Or to stall until you can get your combo if you don't have the board. But I've found that card quite inconsistent in a lot of matchups. But Language Hacker's version, like you said, it's just clean. Just nice and efficient. Never really an awkward hand that's caused by tech cards. Yes, sometimes there can be an awkward hand that's caused by just you having combo pieces and nothing to play proactively onto the board. But sometimes that's not even the worst thing in the world because your range with this deck is insane if you have the ideal tools. Like the Korokron Elite, double Inner Rage, double Bloodsworn Mercenary, so.
All right, well, we'll see if that ends up coming to play for this matchup here. The Spell Druid doesn't have a very fast start, so, with that very slow beginning gives Warrior several opportunities to set up those combos that you were describing, Deej. So looking good as an opportunity for Language Hacker. Maybe not necessarily in the fact that he's going to, have that early game board presence and pressure. But more is the fact that now he gets to set up for what Warrior truly wants to do, which is feel cool by playing 5 or 6 cards in a turn.
Feel cool.
Isn't that why we all do these kinds of things, TJ? To feel sweet when you play these cool decks and combos?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Oh, all right. Well, to get into this matchup a little bit more, the more I watch this matchup, the more I play this matchup from both sides, the more I like Druid in the matchup over Warrior.
Really?
Yes. Long gone are the days where if you can remove Glowfly Swarm, you win the game.
What now?
The absolute bane of Warrior's existence is massive taunt minions. Because outside of Lackey generation and hard removal from Ethereal Lackey, getting through just a Ysera Unleashed with an Iron Bark placed onto it is hard. Putting 15 damage into a taunt minion is very hard. And that's interchangeable with Exotic Mount Seller, with any of the dragons you get from Ysera Unleashed Dream Portals. You kind of have to put on aggression quickly. You can't just hold on to your hand and hope that Risky Skipper is going to get the job done, because while it will get the job done against just Glowfly Swarm, it won't get the job done against big dragon boards from Ysera Unleashed. I just feel like I can feel so far ahead in this matchup as the Warrior, and then one big swing turn happens from the Druid, and the game is almost unrecoverable. And a lot of that's off the back of Iron Barking a big minion, because the deck doesn't get through taunts very well.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, there aren't many spell Druid enthusiasts, at least not as many as there are this Pain Temple Warrior enthusiasts. And so I don't think there's as many players advocating for Druid being favored in this matchup.
Yeah.
But I played a lot of games of both. The Pain Warrior and the Spell Druid are the two decks I've played the most this season, that I've climbed with and that I've been playing in Legend with. And it just feels like I have trouble on the Warrior side of this matchup when I'm playing the Warrior, and I feel like I have a lot of opportunities to stabilize as the from the Druid side of this matchup. This one's not the best situation, though, for Nalguidan. He didn't find early ramp. He did find Fungal Fortunes, but it was late.
Right.
You can't just play Glowfly Swarm on 5 against this matchup, especially after you've seen multiple Ankar swings, because you know that it's just going to get Risky Skippered. And even though sometimes you have the argument of, well, if you play Glowfly Swarm, it gets one of the Risky Skippers out of the way. Language Hacker would love to have an excuse to play Risky Skipper because he'd want to draw more cards with Battle Rage, or get use out of like Inner Rage and Rampage that could be in his hand. So that argument doesn't really hold much weight in this matchup in particular, just because a lot of times Language Hacker would love to have an excuse to use Risky Skipper just to activate all the other stuff in his hand and dump some cards. And yeah, I like the Korkan Elite because this is, I think, where you can find the most success in the matchup is just by being hyper aggressive, and Language Hacker had the start to be able to do so. He had the Corsair Cache into Ankar, which is honestly like the core good start of the deck, and he's got reactive tools, so he's just using everything he can to be proactive, and he's representing a good amount of damage. And Nalguidan doesn't have the big minion plus ton of cheap spells combination that you need. He's got both overflows already, which is what you want to follow up with it. He's got Glowfly Swarm, but no Soul of the Forest to try and provide a little bit of extra protection from Risky Skipper. So, and his hand is too full with these other resources to get overflow off. This is a very awkward hand.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, even if you have the ideal cards as you were describing, it's just the window might be too late. Just too many expensive cards. And when you have to be dumping like this without utilizing the exotic mount seller, that just feels bad. This is not a good spot here. Nalguidan by any stretch of the imagination. This is very, very weak. Now, Language Hacker has so many ways that he can develop here. What did that tell you, what your opponent just did? Overgrowth into double crystal power.
It signifies overflow, honestly. But I wouldn't have even minded from Nalguidan to go Crystal Power, Moonfire, kill the Korkan Elite, and then use the other Crystal Power for face. Because you oftentimes do need that healing just to give you enough time to get to those big plays. Like he's holding on to Moonfire to make sure he has multiple spells for Exotic Mount Seller next turn. But I think he was in a spot where he probably needed to go for Crystal Power Moonfire and then Crystal Power Face to open up hand space and then overflow next turn and try and find like the Bog Beams and Iron Barks before he goes for Exotic Mount Seller. Because now he's at 11. He still doesn't have really hand space for overflow. If he ends up dumping Moonfire here anyway, then he just wasted 5 points of healing.
It just looks so bad in this spot. I don't think you can wait for the ideal setup either here. Really? Okay. Oh, wow.
I wait for no one.
I get it. I totally get it. I get it. It just doesn't seem like a play that would end up finding a win unless you really are optimistic that Warrior has nothing, like legitimately nothing in their hand that they can do. Which is always, in my opinion, an optimistic perspective. But perhaps that's the only way Nalguidan can find a line to win. You know, maybe it's something like the opponent has to have like all situational cards, like all the risky skippers,
What now?
and all the armor smiths, and nothing else. Well, he already played an armor smith on the board. And then from there, the plan perhaps is to just play Ysera's Unleashed or like Mount Seller and then develop. But to expect actually nothing from your opponent is just... It just seems so unrealistic.
I must choose.
Huh.
So Language Hacker will end up burning a card
Unless
he dumps Risky
plays
Skipper.
Risky Skipper. Yeah.
But at this point, I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, like what card could he lose that's like, well, you know what? I guess you're in a bad spot. Like, even if he burns Grom Hellscream, right? His burst combination.
Yeah, now get on. Oh, the Iron Bark. Oh no, that was the one he needed the most.
The finest creatures.
Not unless he gets, you know, four.
No,
Four.
he needed the Iron Bark.
Taunts. Okay. Another one. Also good. Can like Bog Beam and then Power the Wild.
Not Desert here, that's for sure. That should be game.
Is full.
That will be game. Yeah, this kind of just looked like Nalguidan's deck not working more than Warrior being too good to stop.
Yeah.
Like if this was a mid-range hunter or a Highlander hunter, if this was several other things, I think that would just be too hard to stop. So, I don't even really attribute this as anything play related. It's just, I mean, maybe there was an opportunity if, Nalguidan took a more aggressive line for the board and like hope that he could fight back, but he had two overflows in hand, so he had to either play the Mountain Seller and dump everything and hope that he can recover and then overflow afterwards, or he would have to specifically know that Language Hacker had no ability to refill the board, neither of which was the case. So,
well, I mean, there was that turn that I mentioned where instead of going Crystal Power, Moonfire, and then Crystal Power Here's Face, if he has 11 health there, instead of 6, he does get an extra turn.
okay.
there was not a way in hand for Language Hacker outside of bombs, his bomb damage, going to face. Yes, he would have gotten one less beast, because he would have had a Power of the Wild in hand instead of a Moonfire, because he had to dump one thing the following turn, or just not having a Moonfire in hand at all. But at that point, the one less beast wasn't making much of the difference. Like, the last two beasts he summoned were Desert Hare and Augmented Porcupine anyway. So, like, that was a spot where I think he could have had another chance. Also, like, say, for example, Ironbark was one of the cards drawn instead of burned. Then he would have had a 6/11 taunt in play, which Language Hacker did not have a good answer for outside of his second Risky Skipper and throwing Corkin Elite weapon damage into it. Then maybe he stabilized from there. So I think that was also a lot closer than what it appeared to be at the end of the game. But yeah,
Okay.
he had just an awkward start and wasn't able to capitalize on it in a timely manner. His zero-cost spells, like his Bog Beams and his Ironbarks, were close to the bottom. So just a kind of a rough one. And now Nalguidan needs to find a win against the Highlander Mage, which is definitely doable. Again, you have a lot of big threats. You can oftentimes get ahead of the Mage with your ramp, and so your power turns are coming before their power turns. You can oftentimes present too big of a board for Reno the Relicologist to be a big deal. It's the amazing Reno that becomes the issue, because a lot of times you go for these big pushes that aren't usually unlocked until later, and you need to try and find opportunities to go for that big push with the exotic Mount Seller before the amazing Reno has an opportunity to come out. Now it's very likely to pick up 3 spells since he only has one more minion in his deck with the second exotic Mount Seller, so things are looking up.
Things
Zephyrus
are
picked
looking up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's a hand.
Looks good to me.
Mana Saber, Zephyrus, and both Renos. He's got everything he needs.
The thing is, Nalguidan, if he has a way to cement that board even before his opponent can do anything, Soul of the Forest still gives the mage a lot of fits. Maybe there's something.
Yeah.
I wonder. Job done.
I wanted to be a little greedy there and play Power of the Wild and then Overgrowth the next turn. Oh,
Yeah.
never mind. He picked up a second Overgrowth.
Oh my goodness.
He's good. I like to
That
play
looks
a
good to
whole lot
me.
more after seeing that draw.
Yep.
Just do it. Play a Sarah Unleash next turn. Got 2 extra mana, might as well draw a card. Oh, he's making an eagle!
Okay.
Hand space can become an issue, especially with an overflow in hand. Rising Winds becomes a really awkward card because if you draw a card with it, it just adds a card to your hand, it doesn't replace it with the first usage. So I like making an eagle with the first one. But Nalguidan's going to 9 mana. Language Hacker, even with Escape Mana Saber, has 6. Oh,
Wait.
never mind, he can't do it.
Yeah.
Were you thinking Edwin?
Edwin Van Cleve?
Yeah.
Yes. I still think it's worth thinking about if just want to remove this eagle. But I guess you could just take it slower.
What if you hold the attack and then go for Edwin next turn? You have 7 max mana available next turn. You could fit in Zephyrus, Ray of Frost, Ice Barrier, Edwin.
Okay. Zephyrus, Ray of Frost. Okay, yeah.
That's a 10/10.
Yeah. Then you used your things like Deep Freeze, Reno, and Rolling Fireball to push damage.
Yeah. But you're giving
All right,
Nalguidan a whole turn at 9 mana? Okay, I mean, the play's still open as long as he holds on to this escape mana saver.
Right.
I see no reason to attack, so Edwin, still an opportunity.
Especially if you read that Ysera Unleashed portal might be coming down.
Yep.
It gives you the opportunity to strike before your opponent. Nalguidan instead going for the Glowfly Swarm, trying to power up way before Reno.
Yep. And this will also give Language Hacker some information because it was only 6 Glowflies. He knows that there's 2 minions in hand.
Right. He knows exactly 2 minions in the hand.
The double Power of the Wild keeps it out of range of Shadow Flame. Ah, he can Chaos Nova.
Yeah, there's also, you know... There's also different plays available, but it does seem like Zephrys here should be something he's leaning towards. Too bad, and again, no dragon in the hand. Just kind of missed the opportunity there.
Your wish is my suggestion.
Nalguidan's like, alright, I was dumping those cards anyway.
Right. Because now the true threats begin, TJ.
Yeah. Surprisingly, the timing on these Dream Portals is going to be crucial. He either wants them all to come out at once next turn, or he wants them sprinkled in throughout the game to play around the possibility of freeze into Amazing Reno. Like freeze after freeze into Amazing Reno.
Only the
Um,
finest creatures.
You know what? Forget all that, because he's going with Mount Seller.
Yeah, and I like this. So what the thing that Nalguidan is trying to do is, after he starts this first wave of threats, he's going to keep generating more waves because it becomes increasingly more difficult for a Language Hacker to deal with these threats. And so now there's like another series of 4 minions that he has to respect. And Reno here isn't enough to address it. Is it simply a rolling fireball and, you know, kind of like play the Solarian and Ice Bear, just like take it a little bit slower, or do you have to take more extreme measures here?
I will crush your delusions of grandeur.
One extra damage. It might make Reno a little bit more effective. I like it, squeezing out every single point he can.
All right, is there merit to holding on to the Ice Barrier?
Not when you've already committed things like the Zephrys. It just gives you... Yeah, you might as well just do that, right?
Yeah, there's some crazy reasons why you'd hold on to it. Like if Solarian Prime generates Font of Power and you pick up Cloud Prince or I don't even know its name. The 3/3 that grows when you have a secret.
Oh, the Arcane Watcher?
No, it's
no.
a classic card.
The Ethereal Arcanist?
I think it's Ethereal something. I don't think it's Arcanist.
Either
I have to
way.
look it up. What the heck?
I know what you're talking about. It gets +2/+2 for each secret. Or,
Oh,
sorry, for a secret at the end of the turn.
Yeah. It's been in the game forever, and I still can't think of the name. That's crazy. I've seen that card 100 times. Oh well, it'll come to me.
No doubt.
Alright.
Here comes the portals. The March of the Dragons featuring Evasive Worm. Okay. Wow, only one portal?
I still had a good amount of cards in this deck. I think he was like likely to draw a couple there.
Right.
Oh yeah, you're right. It was Ethereal Arcanist. Oh, you're correct.
Yeah.
I'm waits for no one.
Good job, Dan.
Thank you, TJ. Your affirmation means a lot.
Well knowledged, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So now language hacker. Lots of ways to be able to get to the amazing Reno. Probably wants to wait till this board hits some sort of, critical mass where he's getting maximum value out of it. His game plan is to run Nalguidan out of threats, which he's seen one Mount Seller. He is seeing the Ysera Unleashed. There are 6 portals left in the deck, and then there's one more Mount Seller and one more wave of Glowfly Swarms. So whenever he uses some of his big removal, he just needs to make sure that he accounts for the next wave when he gets rid of it.
Okay, sorry, the last hit just killed the evasive worm.
I thought it wasn't going to kill the evasive worm, but got him with the last hit.
Was it Language Hacker who we also saw kill a Warmaul Challenger and leave a 1-2 as a 1-1?
I think it was. That was the craziest. We had the most insane game I've seen in a while, and then he followed up with that, and that was like very subtly just the most insane thing I've seen in Hearthstone. The odds of Reno hitting 1 minion 9 times and a 2 health minion once and not killing it is astronomically low. But that's a conversation for another day. All right, so Nalguidan going for portals here. Language Hacker hoping that every portal comes out.
Oh, yeah.
Because it gives him the easiest amazing Reno of his life. Okay. So there are 3 portals remaining. That's honestly perfect for Nalguidan.
Yeah.
It's enough pressure to warrant removal.
But it's not it's not like too much commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do like summoning this, keeping the hand space. Don't need to draw extra cards, go for it.
Yep.
And now, if you're Language Hacker, do you get greedy? Or do you try and just play the Amazing Reno? It is mana commitment out of the way, but you know that this board still can get even stronger.
Yeah.
And it's not like Nalguidan will play many other things. Like, if Language Hacker freezes, what's going to make Nalguidan... Like, this board already is super strong. Nalguidan might not extend further onto the board.
Yeah, and Nalguidan can't control when his portals are going to come out of his deck. He can control how many cards he draws, but there's... Half of Nalguidan's deck is stream portals right now. He has 6 cards left. 3 of them are portals. So Language Hacker could realistically just freeze here. Wait one more turn to see if more Dream Portals are going to come out, and then go for it. The problem is, Blizzard is one of his best tools to deal with, like, the last push of Glowfly Swarm Solar Forest. But even then, like, Blizzard doesn't really deal with that in a spectacular way, because you still leave the Treants. So,
okay.
He might, I don't know, he might have to, like, Flame Ward Ray of Frost next turn, and wait for the Glowfly Swarm for play Amazing Reno. This is tough. Still needs to check the threats. Alright. 2 more Dream Portals after this. Oh, Skeletal Dragon. Deathwing. Alright, that's all 3. No more portals left. And that's what Language Hacker was hoping for with the Amazing Reno. Last 2 cards for Nalguidan are Soul of the Forest and
Savage Roar number 2?
Yep, Savage Roar number 2. And with both Power of the Wilds gone, Flame Ward actually just deals with the first wave of Glowfly Swarm Soul Forest, so.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the Language Hacker, his gamble has paid off. The idea that maybe if more portals get drawn, he can get even more value.
What's the dragon? Bronze Herald
Bronze
actually
It's kind of annoying to deal
Yeah,
with
it
as
could be
language hacker.
surprisingly effective because it's another wave of threats that won't be accounted for. All right, so last card is Soul Forest. So Nalguidan probably goes Gulfi Swarm, draw the Soul Forest.
Is it not? Yeah.
I'm out of cards.
Yeah, Glowfy Swarm. Then Reno. It is up to you, my guy.
Yeah, well, Flame Ward will buy Language Hacker 1 turn. Tracking, uh-oh. Oh, tracking, cool.
Oh, sweet. Oh, cool.
So this Tortolan Pilgrim has Power of Creation, the Puzzle Box of Yogg Saron, Frost Nova, Arcane Intellect, and that's it. Quite likely to hit Puzzle Box. Up, and now he has the Flame Strike, so he's got it checked.
Yeah, looks like he's overall pretty good now. That Flame Strike is super significant, and now Nalguidan without the ability to punch in significantly because he doesn't have that Power of the Wild. Language Hacker may have mapped this out brilliantly.
Yep.
And you know, with a little bit of luck to make sure the portals drew in the right time and whatnot. I mean, you gotta tip your cap. This looks like a really nice map out here from Language Hacker, who, you know, a couple of potential missteps would have cost him the game.
Though Dan, the amazing Reno
No.
can sometimes come back to bite you.
I thought you were gonna say Exotic Manseller into Zixors again.
That's a possibility, also. But what if Amazing Reno just decides to cast the Shadow Council?
That's a good point.
Then you die. Unless you pick up Wrathspike Brute.
Time waits for no one.
Maybe you just trade and then like don't play anything.
I don't want to trade. I want a full board. Oh, he wants to get the Bronze Herald on board. Okay. Yeah, no, this is smart because he wants to get the Bronze Herald killed off
Right, that makes sense.
so that he has the extra wave already in hand.
Okay. I can buy it. I can dig it. Still presenting a pretty significant wave, and Language Hacker, of course, has the Flame Strike, but let's see what Reno first does. Okay. Birds of Solaria Prime! Puzzle Box of Yogg Saron, TJ. TJ Sanders.
So he does still need. I think you Caligos first, no matter what.
Right. The first spell will cost 0, so you can still play anything.
What would make
Yep.
us rich? The fate of the world.
And then you see if you get a removal spell. All right, Blizzard, easy peasy.
Blizzard. Whoa. But the thing is, he can hold on to Blizzard.
I think you Blizzard
just
now and then
yeah,
hold the
Blizzard.
Flame Strike for the Exotic Mouse.
I mean, Nalguidan also knew that there's a likelihood this doesn't work out, but this is obviously not the ideal scenario. When my opponent discards the puzzle box, though, I'm like, whew, thank you. Thank you. That is
I
awesome.
supply only the finest creatures.
I wonder if you part ways with a Savage Roar here for an extra beast. I think if he doesn't get Zixor, it's going.
Ironbark again.
He's spreading out the health exactly
Yeah.
how Language Hacker wants him to.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's so much fatigue damage.
Yep. I think, you know, it's important to do that to try to maximize your chances here, and you have to be very optimistic and hope that the Malego spell isn't anything good, but yeah. That's going to wrap it up.
God, a frost.
Oh, jeez.
Uh,
Oh, wow. Sometimes when it rains, it pours, TJ.
all right, I'm casting Puzzle Box here. I don't care. He's taking 6 fatigue next turn.
You're in my hands.
Tortolan Pilgrim Puzzle Box.
All right. Well, that's going to do it. Language Hacker climbs up in the series 2-1. And, this slower matchup that we have for the head-to-head is going to come to a conclusion soon. But Language Hacker getting the Mage through, and Mage shutting down the Druid.
Yeah.
We were talking about how Druid might be struggling a little bit. And this weekend, it seems like Druid once more has some struggles that needs to overcome.
Yeah, it's been a weak point. A lot of players' lineups feels. Sometimes just due to bad matchups, sometimes due to awkward draws, sometimes due to poor play. We got the whole shebang. Every single iteration of Spell Druid you could possibly want. Language Hacker does have Priest left, but he crushed Druid the last time he played this with his Highlander Priest. Nailed Overgrowth from Zephyrus and just killed him on like 7 or 8. I don't even know. It was early. Who knows when those ramp turns? It was probably on turn 5, actually.
Yeah.
It was very quick. And Nalguidan just seems like this Spell Druid cannot piece together a win. Can't do it. Maybe he switches it up.
Against Priest, it does seem like the Priest can struggle versus that Druid if they get that early Soul the Forest and, they don't have AoE. Cards like Soul Mirror doesn't really answer the threat of Savage Roar in that board. But Nalguidan does have, more to worry about than the traditional Priest list. It's that Highlander Priest, which also, incidentally, might just have, Curve to disrupt things. I think one of the hardest cards for Drew to deal with in general is High Priest Ahmed, and this is, one of the only priests that is playing it, so we might see some interesting shenanigans there.
Yeah, it's the weird cards that you're going to struggle with as the Druid. Because even though you don't have to worry about as much on-demand removal, you do have to worry about weird things like Convincing Infiltrator and High Priest Ahmed. Sometimes even Dark Prophecy.
Super dark.
Nalguidan's going to switch things up and go to the Warrior for game number 4 here. See if he can get a win with that and narrow it down to Druid. Warrior. I'm trying to evaluate it compared to the versus Highlander Priest compared to Galakron Priest, but honestly, I don't even know what to believe anymore. Because when I watch pro Hearthstone players debate on social media about who's favored between Warrior and Priest,
Someone's gotta lead the charge.
I feel like I'm a little kid and my parents are arguing about something completely arbitrary and I don't know whose side to pick and I just want them to stop fighting. That's what it feels like. At this point, I don't care. I just want it to be over.
Wow.
So I'm not going to even try and open up that can of worms again.
Okay.
I don't know who's favored. I don't care who's favored. Highlander Priest is different.
Made to fit.
I'm just going to assume Warrior's favored because it's been beating everything. So I'm just going to believe my eyes and my ears. Instead of what these
eyes and my
so-called pro players are parroting.
Tell him, TJ.
Dark Prophecy.
I do agree, and I think that a lot of these problems that we've been seeing has just kind of been systemic with how we approach the matchup in general. People who, I don't mean to say this disrespectfully, but people who say this is the way it works, and because this is how it is on my ladder experiences, and it's this isn't ladder. We're not playing 100 games to get an idea of what's the best thing to do here. We're trying to find out, and Conquest does reflect ladder a little bit, so I will acknowledge that. But we're trying to find out what's a good lineup here and how we should approach classes like Priest and Warrior holistically, and use bans to influence that.
Yeah, Dan, screw those guys.
Yeah, yeah.
I was going to say, Mind Flayer seems great on Armorsmith. It's all those fancy shenanigans that Warrior wants to do in the early game are going to give you armor. You want to play Risky Skipper? Be my guest. This is a very meek-looking hand from Nalguidan.
I challenge you to Makbara!
4 armor though.
Yeah, don't think he cares much about armor in this matchup. Maybe he's on the fatigue game plan now. Just never going to play his battle rages.
Right. Yeah,
Just
maybe
never
at
draws
this
a card.
point-
Made to fit.
What?
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, maybe at this point you just really have to hope that any kind of tempo that you can get can be backed up with Battle Rage later. But Language Hacker is just gonna do a good job controlling the state of the board here.
I wonder.
And then the question becomes: Is it better for a Language Hacker to just be reactive, or is it just better to be proactive here? And I like it because we're talking about how High Priest of Met. It's just a difficult card to answer, but it does require resources committed. I guess Nalguidan could answer it in a multitude of ways here. Any weapon
Yeah.
would have been perfectly fine. And that does incidentally set up a Battle Rage too.
Why would you want... Okay.
Is there a need to be greedy with Battle Rage in this matchup?
Sometimes, but right now he just wants play.
Gotta lead the charge?
I think here you can afford to do it just because he's got the Parachute Brigand.
On wings of evil.
And he's got Anchor so he can pick up Risky Skipper. Oh, Ysera.
Okay. I mean, Ysera is an opportunity. And actually, this was something that we saw in Europe where the Draconic Lackey into like a high-value dragon like Ysera ends up being a key reason why they end up winning the game.
Nice.
And I think if I'm Language Hacker, I'm also just really happy with all this armor being gained.
Yeah. He has not had to worry about his life total one bit. Now things are going to start to get a little bit tougher.
It's okay. Bone Wraith is actually a great draw, so now he can just pick apart this Lackey and Holy Smite.
And gain even more armor.
More arm!
Oh, if this picks up Risky Skipper.
Yeah, there's still a chance it doesn't, but this Bomb Wrangler could be great. And, judging from Nalguidan's face, did not get it.
Well, that's the problem with putting a Captain Greenskin in your deck.
Yeah, are you going to really blame him for that, though? It feels like it's a good card.
I don't know. When I first played the version with Captain Greenskin and Deathwing Mad Aspect, I loved it. And the more I played it, the less I loved it. Because the more Deathwing Mad Aspect became a dead card in hand, the more I kept getting burned by pulling out Captain Greenskin with Anchor when I really needed Risky Skipper.
Drink up the army.
Okay.
The more Captain Greenskin was just in my hand after I'd used weapons. Like picking up Captain Greenskin after you use your last charge of Anchor.
It's true.
Like right there, Risky Skipper would have been the stone cold nuts. He would have been able to play the Bomb Wrangler. Risky Skipper play the Bomb Wrangler, trade off the board. Yes, give his opponent's armor, but he's giving him armor anyway. And then Battle Rage to draw a bunch of cards. Like, that would have been the juice.
Alright, who's thirsty?
And now, instead of the juice, Nalguidan gets a peanut.
Spoiled milk.
Yeah.
I was trying to go with your analogy.
And now it picks up Corsair Cash after both of his weapons, or all three of his weapons have been drawn.
Yeah.
This is brutal.
Funny enough, Language Hacker might just also get ahead enough on the board to just like play Galakron and Kronks, and then just uses Zephyrs to close out the game.
Yo, yeah, actually, that's a very good point.
Job done.
I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Warrior versus Druid, how much Warrior struggles to deal with big taunt minions. Well, Kronks makes a big taunt minion. He does have Deathwing Mad aspect though, and this is one of those times where it might be useful because he's behind.
Right.
Language Hacker's also at just a cool 38. So Nalguidan not only has to find a way to gain control of the board, then he has to find a way to stick a bunch of damage before his combos are even in range. And he has no weapon swings left after this last one. Unless he draws, like, exactly the second Sky Raider and picks up Captain Greenskin.
Love
Did
to
he hit
see
it?
He lost a lot of 50-50s there, but
Yeah.
it's okay. And the most important thing is Language Hacker has that Kronks and he has that Zephyrus. And one thing that Zephyrus could also do besides close out the game, if Language Hacker's really hurting on resources, sometimes Zephyrus offers you card draw as well. It's kind of a rare instance. You never really pick Zephyrus for that option, but sometimes Zephyrus does give you that possibility. But now that Language Hacker has that Galakron hero power, probably doesn't need it. You can keep playing stuff every single turn.
Okay. He's going to copy this and then rush the Bloodsworn Mercenary.
Your flaws are your strength.
This is out of Kronks range, but not out of Zephyrus range. And that's a Rampage and Bloodsworn Mercenary use. Push 8.
Right, that's a big combo piece.
But Galakron gone. If Language Hacker uses Zephyrus here, Ysera sticks.
As far as he knows.
I mean, it's going to stick. I don't even see a single way in Language Hacker's deck outside of those things that kills it.
Your wish is my suggestion.
Yeah, there isn't. He's already used Mind Flare. Oh, he could Madame Lazul and get... Oh, he got Madame Lazul and get Deathwing Mad Aspect. It's a turn away, so Nalguidan gets a 2 turns of usage out of it.
Thought Steal.
The future is clear. Your demise be near.
Well, he knows the Ysera card now.
Yeah.
This is probably Bomb Wrangler. Make the risky skipper plays more awkward.
TJ, this is such a meme. What is happening? Laughing sister. All of these stink.
Time is running out.
Is he gonna make an 8/8?
You are too late.
Guess so. Best board. And go face.
Yeah.
And I mean, here's the thing. When your opponent plays Madame Lazul, there's like, you have to think about what's in your hand. You're like, oh, is it Grom? Is he trying to... Is this guy trying to aggro me down? That's scary as the warrior to just play cleanup here from the spot.
There's a couple of weird plays that can take place here. Play number
Go
one.
on.
Play number one. Just put your faith in the Deathwing.
Okay.
Just rip it.
Yes.
That seems like the worst. There's other plays like Blood Boil Brute. You Kobold Lackey the 8/8 Blood Boil Brute, trade in. Another one is to like Kobold Lackey your own Ysera and rampage it.
All these just sound pretty bad, so it's gonna go ahead and clear off some of these minions. But it's still scary when 9 survives on the board here. Oh yeah? Okay. Okay, picks up Ysera Awakens. That's big Grom damage. What? Okay, this is getting way out of control, TJ, at this point.
Aeon Reaver.
That does 7 damage to Ysera. No, Storm of the Timeless is an 8/8. Battlecry doesn't really matter setting your opponent's crystals to 10.
This game's gonna get real weird.
It wasn't weird already?
In time, all things are possible.
Okay.
He has
he has a clear with Ysera Awakened and Deathwing.
It's not a clear though. It could attack his own Ysera first. Because Ysera Awakens doesn't hit the Ysera.
True. Wow. That is hilarious. But not really in a funny way.
He's got to go for it anyway, right?
Guess so.
Who's boss? Floaty, go get him!
Oh, he's gonna hope for bombs. This bomb has to hit one of these for. It has to hit a minion. If it hits a minion, he's alive.
Oh! Nailed it.
And he gets more Ysera value.
Nice.
Oh no, he's dead. Shout out Manus Apotheosis.
Oh no! Yes. Wow. An unusual turn of events, and now Language Hacker. He is going to take this series 3-1 and improve his score, sending Nalguidan even deeper into the Division A hole. That's actually really bad news here for Nalguidan. You know, the standings already were looking bad for him, but now another loss.
Yeah.
Oof. Not looking good.
Pretty rough. 0-5. Yep. And I don't know, it just so many of the games there that were close just felt almost unwinnable outside of crazy scenarios towards the end. Like that game was close, but like he needed Ysera to kind of bail him out of the situation that he was in, where he was just out of value and out of just things to play on board from his hand, and found a play that very likely kept him alive to many things. Priest not known for direct damage, but unfortunately just not enough, as Language Hacker was able to hold on to the resources that he needed to finish the game. But yeah, Nalguidan most likely going to be in the relegation bracket. The bright side for Nalguidan is that he's in Division A, so he'll have at least a couple matches if he ultimately ends up in that relegation bracket to fight his way back into Grandmasters.
Oh, jeez. It's bad luck. But either way, if you can fight for that 7th seed versus the 8th seed, that is the big deal to get that extra match. So we'll be cheering for Nalguidan along the way. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead and focus on the present. Just Sand is going to be taking on Monsanto, 2 players who are also